So we did a vote. 18 people voted. 94% said yes, 6% said no. So we are covering the Krakoan era. Now, I'll say this. There are over 500 issues and 80 series in the Krakoan era. We are not covering all that, but we are going to hit the main parts. We're definitely going to hit the main parts. But it all starts off with Hox and Pox, House of X, and Powers of X. If you are not new to this, welcome back. Let's take a trip down memory lane. If you read the Krakoan era, but didn't read Hox and Pox, you're in for a treat. And if this is your first introduction to the Krakoan era, buckle up your seatbelts. My name is Dorian. This is SEN Comics. We are starting our coverage of the Krakoan era with House of X, #1. So our legendary story starts off in the birthing chamber. Is that what they called it? I mean, that's where they come out the eggs, right? You would think they would call it a birthing chamber. Feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. And you got Professor Xavier walking around in his cerebral helmet as it looks like Scott and Jean are being birthed. He picks up Scott's head and he goes, "To me, my X-Men." Then on the next page, we go to 5 months ago on Krakoa, and we see Colossus picking a flower. 4 months ago, we see Storm dropping off a flower at Westchester, the mansion. 3 months ago, I don't know who this is, but they're dropping off a flower at the blue area of the moon. 2 months ago, we see Armor dropping off a flower on Mars. 1 month ago, we see Beast, I'm assuming this Beast, drop off a flower at the Savage Land. 3 weeks ago, I'm assuming this is Kitty, because of her pet dragon, dropping off a flower in Washington, D.C. And 2 weeks ago, I'm assuming this is the Zephyr Cuckoos, drops off a flower at the Jerusalem Habitat. So then we cut to now at the Jerusalem Habitat as limousines pull up and we see ambassadors from different countries come out. One guy goes, "Ambassador, you look tired. How was your flight?" He goes, "The flight was fine." That's not the reason why I'm tired. I'm tired because of what's going on right now with Professor Xavier telepathically talking to everybody and let us know exactly what his demands are. So then this other ambassador lady walks up and she goes, "Yeah, personally me, I sleep better when there's predictability. With all this unpredictability that's going on, it keeps you up at night." So another lady walks up and goes, "It's the designer drug thing, isn't it?" And she goes, "Yeah, no, I don't like it at all." So just in case you're wondering what drugs are they talking about, there's one ambassador that lays it all out. He goes, "A drug that expands human life 5 years, another one that prevents disease of the mind, and a third that is the most effective adaptive antibiotic the world's ever seen. I don't see a problem with this." Like, you can tell this dude is a big farmer boy because he is excited about this. So one ambassador goes, "It's not a gift if you got to pay for it." Boo. Come on now. Like, you got to pay for everything. Like, stop. Just stop. So one ambassador starts to put him in his place and goes, "Well, that's what's called leverage. God knows none of us has ever dared to do that before, right?" So the pharmaceutical guy puts the finishing touches on it. He goes, "Trade deals, treaties, the money and power of it all. These are complications you are all familiar with. What you should be concerned with is amnesty." So one ambassador goes, "You think so?" And ambassador goes, "I seem to remember something someone said once. Something about appearing to be one thing, but actually doing another." One ambassador goes, "I know you're not quoting Sun Tzu, are you?" Dude that wrote The Art of War. So the Chinese ambassador goes, "Why bother? It's not a war if they already won." So one ambassador goes, "So that's your position of the Chinese government?" And he goes, "I have orders to accept Xavier's deal." So 2 of the Zephyr Cuckoos appears and pretty much welcome all the ambassadors into the habitat. So they're all talking and then they go, "Well, where's Xavier at?" All of a sudden all you hear is, "Charles won't be joining us today. He is otherwise engaged. I admit I am a poor substitute, but hopefully I'll manage." And they go, "Magneto?" Magneto goes, "Please, Ambassador, it's fine. Follow me, I'll give you the tour." So we might as well talk about the flowers of Krakoa. You got the human drug L. That's pretty much the one that gives humans an extra 5 years of life. Say what you want to about the Krakoan era. If that drug was real, people will be killing for it. Killing for it. Extra 5 years of life? All day. All day. You got the human drug I. That's the one that's the adaptive universal antibiotic. Pretty much can heal you from anything. They just pretty much took Wolverine's healing factor and just put it in pill form. So that's what I'm assuming anyway. And then you got the human drug M, that is the mind drug. That'll pretty much cure you from any kind of mental disease, which considering my grandma had Alzheimer's and my dad had dementia, I know what's coming down the pike, so I would take this drug all day, any day of the week, twice on Sundays. So now for the mutants, those flowers that everybody was dropping off, those are gateways. Pretty much you take one flower, you put it wherever you want to, its twin is on Krakoa, and it gives you an instant access to anywhere that flower is at. You got the habitats, which you see in Jerusalem. We're also going to see one in New York that's going to pop up pretty soon. And then you got the no places. That's pretty much where it'll take you right out of space and time. This is going to be very important way, way, way down the road. Way down the road. Actually, I take that back. We're going to see a no place in the Power of X. But, you know, they do become important way down the road. So then we cut to Westchester, New York, and you have Jean, and she's dressed up in her old Marvel Girl uniform, and she's taking some young mutants, and she's explaining how the Golden Gates work. How as long as you're a mutant, you can pass through the gates. If you're not a mutant, you could not, unless you're accompanied by a mutant. And even if you're accompanied by a mutant, you still have to have permission to be able to go onto the island. Now we cut to Cypher and Sage, and they're commanding the, I guess, Krakoan headquarters. And they're pretty much monitoring everybody who passes through the gates. So Jean and the green girl Fauna pass through the gates, and Jean's trying to explain to her, you know, kind of how the rules are going to be working here on the island. And she goes, look, it's Professor Xavier, and he's with some hairy guy. And Jean goes, oh, yeah, well, why don't you go over and introduce yourself? And the hairy guy, his name is Logan. So there's already other kids jumping all over Wolverine. She runs over there. Professor Xavier looks over, sees Jean, and goes, welcome home, Jean. You're safe here. We all are. So now we cut to deep space. And I mean deep, because they're right next to the sun, where Orchis is already into their groove and already starting to build their space station. So the captain of the ship is Dr. Gregor's husband. He's pretty much letting them know that, hey, you guys need to test the air there before you guys take off your suits or anything like that. We need to see if it's inhabitable. And she doesn't listen and just takes off her helmet. And her husband goes, and that's why we don't have kids. So Dr. Gregor is pretty much laying out her plans of what they're going to be doing and how they're going to be doing it. And she's talking to Omega Sentinel. So then Omega Sentinel and Dr. Gregor are talking, and they're pretty much saying how the robots that built the station are now reassigned to go to Mercury to mine some metal there so that they can help out with whatever's going to be going on here on Earth. And then besides, if they need robots, that's exactly what that facility is for, to make robots. As we see, this station is right next to the sun, and it's around a big old head, which is a master mold or a mother mold. I don't know which one, but it's wonderful. So now this is how Orchis was created. 31% of it was made up of aim, 24% of it is made up of shield, 16% of it is made up of strike, 8% of it is made up of sword, 7% of it is made up of alpha flight, 5% of it is made up of hammer, another 5% is made up of armor, and 4% was made up of Hydra. But they act a lot like Hydra. I mean, a lot. So now, with a little hindsight, I can show you this list and tell you that the only two people you really need to worry about on this list is Dr. Gregor and Omega Sentinel. Like, everybody else is pretty much irrelevant. Like, I know they got Dr. DeVoe down as the dude in charge of Orchis. Trust me. What I say, 500 issues the Krakoan era was, shoot, I covered at least a good 1/3 of the back end of the end of the Krakoan era. I probably count on one hand how many times I actually read a comic book with Dr. DeVoe in it. So yeah, trust me, Dr. Gregor, Omega Sentinel. So now we get some excitement. We're in damage control in a storage facility, and you got Mystique, Sabretooth, and Toad. When Magneto needs something done, he gonna turn to his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Sabretooth is doing his Sabretooth thing, killing all the guards. Well, maybe not all the guards are dead, but you know, some of those dudes are dead. So Mystique's sitting there talking about Toad, how much longer is it gonna take? And Toad's sitting there with the laptop, and he's like, you want me to search a database of the smartest people in the world, make a copy of it, and get out of here like we would never hear? Like, come on, Mystique, have some limitations. Like, it's probably going to take as long as, you know what, okay, I'm done. So she's like, okay, let's get the hell out of here. So she shoots a big hole into the building. Like, how the hell is somebody not going to know they weren't there? So they're trying to get to Washington Square so they can get to the Krakoan gate. But then Sabretooth's like, hold on, wait a minute. I smell something. Incoming, and he gets hit with a fireball. Then we see is Johnny Storm and Ben Grimm with the Fantastic Four. So Sabretooth goes to Mystique and Toad's like, you guys get out of here, I'll handle this. And Ben Grimm knocks the bejesus out of Sabretooth. So what they were stealing were the blueprints to Saul's hammer. Now, that's something that Reed Richards and Tony Stark came up with during the incursions. You know, eventually we're going to cover that story, but we need to ease into that. We got this covered first. Now, why do the mutants need the blueprint to Saul's hammer? Guess we get to find out together. So the Stepford Cuckoos and Magneto are pretty much giving the tour of how the Krakoan gates work and how they had to label the gates so that nobody gets lost, because there's a lot of gates now. And they're like, well, what kind of language is that? And there's like, it's our own language. It's Krakoan. And they're like, well, we can't read that. And Magneto's like, because it's not for you guys. So as soon as a mutant comes to Krakoa, they are telepathically imprinted in their cerebral cortex the language of Krakoa. So the Chinese ambassador's like, you made your own language. Magneto's like, of course we did. He's like, you can't create a distinct culture without it. And make no mistakes, that's exactly what we're doing. So they start going to the gates and they start going to all these different places. And then one of the ambassadors goes, so when we're going to go to Krakoa? And Magneto's like, you're not. And Magneto starts to, flex a little bit. He goes, we are Homo superiors. Technically, we should inherit the whole Earth. But we're not going to. We're going to let you keep most of it. All we ask is that you stay off of our little island. So we go back to the Fantastic Four and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, pretty much going at it. Toad and Mystique are going through the gates. And Mystique's like, come on, Creed, let's go. He does a jump kick off the thing. He tries to go to the gate. Then he's in a force field because Reed and Susan Richards show up. But then somebody else also shows up through the gate. And it's Cyclops. These guys go way back. Like, Cyclops is like, hey, Ben, congratulations on the wedding. Mazel tov. And Ben's like, oh, thanks, Slim. He was like, of course. So everything else is going well. And Susan's like, yeah, the normal fireworks, Cyclops. And he goes, what would life be without a little bit of surprise? So then Reed goes, so? And he goes, yeah, well, I'm here to take Mr. Creed off your hands. Well, Johnny's like, we just caught him. And Reed's like, why would we do that? And Scott's like, you're a smart man, Mr. Richards. You know what amnesty means. And Reed's like, Sabretooth has broken a number of laws. And I'm pretty sure that some of those guards back there are fatally wounded. So, yeah, I don't think we're going to be just letting them go like that. So Cyclops is like, I know it's upsetting, but I'm afraid new beginnings demand wide bursts. So the Reed is like, yeah, I think we have a problem with that. So Cyclops is like, you know what? Fair enough. I can see you feel strongly about this, so I'll go ahead and I'll let you keep them. And we'll deal with this some other time, some other way. So Sabretooth in this little box goes, what? Are you kidding me, Summers? So then Susan's like, Cyclops, this amnesty and other things that Xavier is doing, like, what are you guys thinking? So then Cyclops goes, my family has spent their entire lives being hunted and hated. The world has told me that I am less than when I know I'm more. Did you honestly think that we was going to sit around and take it forever? So Susan's like, of course not. But so Cyclops like, it's really simple, Susan. I believe in what Charles Xavier is doing. And please greet your son for me and tell him when he's ready, his family on Krakoa will be waiting for him. So now this is the list of Omega level mutants. Now, some of these people are beyond Omega level, but yeah, this is the list. And even though like with Benedict Perry, they say unknown, he's going to show up. Same thing with David Holler, Legion, he's going to show up. Only one I don't think that ever shows up is Absalom Mercator, which is crazy. That dude is ridiculously powerful. He's the only one I don't know that didn't show up at all. But I guess we're going to find out if he did, but I don't think he did. So then we go back to the Krakoan habitat in Jerusalem. And Magneto goes, so, what have we learned? And one of the ambassadors starts to talk, and Magneto cuts him off, just like, wasn't talking to you. And one of the Stepford Cuckoos starts to lay out how most of these people are ex-military, and all of them, every last one of them, is crooked and has an agenda. The ambassador from China is actually the head of the science department in China. The French ambassador is an actual ambassador, but he bought his way onto being an ambassador because he owns a private pharmaceutical company. That's why he was so interested in coming, because of the pharmaceutical aspect of it. The Russian ambassador is actually a Red Sky senior operative. The one ambassador that's sporting the Reed Richards is actually an agent of strike. And the one ambassador who pretty much was spelling gloom and doom and didn't like what the hell was going on, he's an ex-SHIELD, ex-SWORD, Black Ops agent who is trained enough to still be blocking off some of the Steffer Cuckoo's mental probes. And he has a gun. So Magneto pretty much relieves him of that gun, takes it all apart, and picks him up in the air. And he's like, I wasn't going to use it, it's just for my protection. And Magneto's like, of course. That's the way I always start. So Magneto goes, I like how you guys are wolves pretending to be sheep, but I learned hard lessons from your kind. And I know the truth. You're all wolves. So he pretty much starts to lay out exactly how things are going to work, but he ends it one of the best ways I've ever heard in comics. He goes, you see, I know how you humans love your symbolisms, almost as much as you love your religions. So I want you, no. I need you to understand. You have new gods now. And that's how you start a new era. With a bang. Yin and yang. You gotta take the good with the bad. House of X, the mutants are pretty much walking around thumping on their chests. Power of X, they're getting their chests caved in. My name is Dorian. This is SEM Comics. We are continuing our coverage of Hox and Pox with Power of X, #1. So the story starts off with year 1, the dream. In year 10, the world. Pretty much where we're at right now. In year 100, we have the war, and we see a picture of Nimrod. Then we have 1,000 years into the future, and we have Ascension. Now there's a lot of you that read a lot more of the Krakoan era than I did. But I'm pretty sure the only time we hear from this dude, the 1,000-year Ascension, is in Hoxpox. Like, I don't think he shows up any other time ever in the Krakoan era. Like, we never get to this part. But, please let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. So in year 1, we start off at a fair where Professor Xavier is just enjoying himself. He sits down on the bench. He's looking up at the birds. He's just chilling. And a woman walks up to him and says, good afternoon. This is Moira McTaggart. I'm sorry, Moira McTaggart. The last thing I want to do is hear from anybody telling me I'm pronouncing her name wrong. So he greets her back. She's making small talk with him and then asks to sit down. Professor was like, oh yeah, definitely, please. So they sit down and they're still engaging in some small talk. And then Moira starts to get into it. She's talking about how she was over there by like the fortune tellers and everything, and she saw 3 cards, the Magician, the Tower, and the Devil. And then she looked over and she saw Professor Xavier, the exact person who she was looking for. And then she says that he's a strong man. He's like, I'm really not that strong. She cuts him off, but like, no, you are. And you was just sitting there in the sun and you were smiling. And then he was like, you want to know what I was smiling about? And she goes, yes. And he's like, I recently had the most wonderful dream. And then she hits him with a line that we will hear echoed throughout this whole Krakoan era. She goes, well, Charles Xavier, it's not a dream if it's real. So he goes, I'm sorry, do we know each other? And she goes, oh yes, we go way back. And he goes, who are you? She goes, read my mind, Charles. Read my mind and see. He does so, and he goes, oh. So now we jump 10 years, but really this is right where the Krakoan era started. So this is right where House of X #1 left off at. And we have Mystique and we have Toad, and they just walk through the gates. Mystique tells Toad to go play, and she has a hard drive, and she heads to the House of M. And Magneto is like a schoolboy. He's just giddy. He's just loving this whole Krakoan thing. At least started off that way. And he's like, this whole Krakoan thing is great. And hopefully you come back and you tell me that we have more success. And Mystique's like, we lost Sabretooth, and he did us no favors by killing the guards, but yeah, we have it. And he's like, well done. And then she goes to hand it to him. And then all of a sudden she pulls away and goes, but I have demands. All of a sudden all you hear is, do you now? As Charles Xavier walks in. And he goes, is helping your fellow mutant not rewarded enough, Raven Darkhold? And she doesn't even bat an eyelash. She's like, no, it is not. I need more. So he reads her mind and goes, yes, I see that. But it's fair, I suppose. We also have further demands as well. So she throws him a hard drive and goes, really? And he goes, I'm afraid so. And she is on his own line. So helping your fellow mutant is reward enough, Charles Xavier? He goes, well, we are building a better mutant world, Mystique. And everyone who lives in it owes something. So now we cut to 100 years, and this is where things went south quickly. And there's this mutant. He's on the ground. It looks like Doug, but I don't think it's Doug. So I'll tell you why later on. And he goes, there was a dream. Our dreams are the same. While you slept, the world changed. Which were his dying words as he was saying it to this mutant hunter who are humans with advanced technology and they're working with these robots or these AIs. So they're pretty much like, this mutant's dead. What about the other one? And then we turn the page and we see Silabelle. I'm assuming that's Silabelle. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think it's Silabelle. And she is a former hound. Yes, just like in Days of Futures Past. They take mutants and they breed them to hunt down other mutants. They have a place where they call the kennel. That's where they're made. So they're questioning her, asking her where the other mutants are at. Obviously, she's not talking. So telepathically, she's talking to Rasputin 4, who is a creation of Sinister. She is a 5-gifted chimera. Now, Cardinal is also a chimera. He is 3-gifted. He looks like Nightcrawler. He's red instead of blue, hence the name Cardinal. And he has Nightcrawler's powers, I think Jean or Rachel's powers, and Ajax's powers. So you would think this dude would be a Haas, but he's kind of a punk. He wants to just get the hell out of Dodge and leave Silabelle and Rasputin 4. If you know anything about Rasputin 4, the one thing she ain't is a punk, and she will not give up on her friends. So she's like, nah, we need to save her. So that's what Rasputin 4 does. He jumps out with her big ass sword and starts hacking and slashing like she normally does. So she does actually get to Silabelle, and then Cardinal is trying to plant the Krakoan seed so a gate can appear so they can get the hell out of there. So everything looks fine. They're about to get out of there. Gates open. Cardinal's like, let's go. She says, okay. But then a big old hand comes out of nowhere, which Rasputin 4 catches and then uses her sword to pretty much take it out. But, you know, that hand's attached to something really big, which is a Sentinel. So now she's fighting that. And now reinforcements has come. So now she has her hands full. A force field goes around Silabelle, and now she's being taken away. They're ganging up on Rasputin 4, and Cardinal did nothing. Now, like I said before, Rasputin 4 is a 5-gifted chimera. So she has Quidden-Quired's mental ability. So she is ridiculously strong when it comes to that. She has, obviously, Colossus's strength and metal skin. She has the force field ability of Gunther Blaine. Now, he is a old school character. I'm talking about like 1960s X-Men old school character. Like, yeah, he's way back. I mean, they did some digging for this dude. She has Kitty Pryde's intangibility, and she has Laura Kinney's healing factor. So yes, she is a hoss. So now we cut to the Tower of Nimrod the Lesser. I would not want to be called Nimrod the Lesser. I mean, I wouldn't want to be called Nimrod, but definitely not Nimrod the Lesser. Like, so where's Nimrod the Greater? Because, I mean, that's what I'm assuming that is, right? Lesser, greater, you know. Where's the greater Nimrod? Why isn't he in charge? Why is Nimrod the Lesser in charge? Anyway, the two mutant hunters are dragging Silabelle to Nimrod the Lesser, stupid, and Omega Sentinel. So one of them goes, great Nimrod, we seek your audience and require the wisdom of your counsel. He can't be great if he's lesser. Like, you know what, let me get off of that. And he goes, please, there's no need for formalities. We are all allies and equals. You're always welcome here. And Omega Sentinel, she goes right to the chase and she goes, what do you need, Hunter? So pretty much they explain how the mutants might have been able to get a hold of something. They don't know what it is, and she ain't talking. So they're like, huh, she's a hound, the last of her kind. And then Nimrod gets up because he made these hounds. And he's like all like apologetic to her, like, I'm sorry I made you, and I made you to hunt down your own kind, and that wasn't great, and I truly apologize for what I did, and so on and so forth, but unfortunately we're gonna need to get this information, and if you ain't talking, there's only one thing for us to do. So he goes straight from being apologetic to straight evil. So Mega Sentinel's like, all right, it's your last shot, tell us what you know, or you're going to have to take a bath. And she's like, nah, I'm not talking. So Nimrod's like, great, bath it is. So pretty much what this is that they made something to where the mutants will go in there, their bodies will pretty much die, but their minds will be preserved and turned into an AI of sorts, and they'll be able to get the information that way. Very slow and very painful, and it sucks, but they don't care. So now we cut to the No Place Hub. That's pretty much the space between the two gates. And you got Cardinal, and he's saying sorry to Rasputin 4. Obviously, Rasputin 4 far away out of it, and she got away. And then Cardinal's trying to be like, yeah, I'm sorry for not helping. Rasputin 4 ain't trying to hear it because, trust me, and she has a reason not to hear it, because Cardinal, like I said before, he has the powers of Nightcrawler. He has the mind reading and telekinesis of Jean Grey or Rachel Summers. He either has them one or both, as far as like mind reading and telekinesis. Doesn't matter which one, because they're both Omega level. And he has the powers of Ajax, which means he has super strength, super durability, super speed, like all that, all wrapped into one damn mutant. And he's a punk. So once they pass through the gates, they're on Krakoa, and somebody goes, we only see 2 of you guys in transit. And Rasputin 4 is like, yeah, because the other 2 are pretty much dead. And she is talking to Wolverine, who is one of the last horsemen of Apocalypse. He's War. Now, he's the only one that's not a chimera. So look, he's still Wolverine. Old ass Wolverine. Famine is a mixture of Krakoa and Doug Ramsey's corpse. That's why I said I don't think the other mutant was Doug Ramsey, even though it looked like him. The one that looks like Magneto is Pestilence. That is not Magneto. I know it looks like him. I thought the same thing when I first read it. I was like, oh, wow, Magneto. You lived 100 more years. What the hell is going on? No, that is not Magneto. That is North. He is a chimera. He is a split between Lordane and Emma Frost. So he has Magneto's powers, Emma Frost's powers. The man is dangerous. And Death is Zorn. If you guys are familiar with Zorn, I mean, do you need to be crossed with anything? You're Zorn. That means your head's a black hole. So enough said. So Wolverine's being Wolverine. He's like, so is what they did worth dying for? And Cardinal's like, we got it. He goes, all right, follow the old man then. Now, as we see on this page, the mutants have been hunted down. There were millions of mutants on Krakoa. Well, not so much now. There's a place called Benevolence, which is a space station that's in Shi'ar space. It has 7,942 mutants. Now, on Shandor, which is the Shi'ar homeworld, there is 1,829 mutants. And then on Asteroid K, that's pretty much what Krakoa has turned into, an asteroid floating in space, there's 8. It was 10, but I lost 2, so now there's 8. So now we go to 1,000 years into the future, and we see that Salabel is just pretty much riding in her bath. And we have the achievements of Nimrod the Greater. Where did he come from? Because there was only Nimrod the Lesser. Now he's Nimrod the Greater. Like, please explain to me how this thing goes with Nimrod. It's pretty crazy. Anyway, he created a mutant library, and there has to be a librarian, and that's what that little kid looks like he is. It might be a man, I don't know, but he looks like a kid to me. And as I'm speaking this, I mean, there's probably no gender because they're pretty much AIs. Like, yeah, there's no humans, there's no mutants, there's just is what it is, whatever they are. And the reason why I say that is because now there is a habitat where humans are on display. Humans, mutants, whatever, they're pretty much down to where they're back in like the Stone Age, and they're just roaming around in this like AI made forest. It's That's pretty horrible. Yeah, mutants lost, humans lost, AI won in the story. But not really in the story because, you know, we got a few more. In other words, we got like 5 more issues of House of X and 5 more issues of Power of X. So yeah, it's about to get crazy. Power of X is one of Myra's lives. If you don't know what's life, all you gotta do is check out the last video. And when I mean last video, I mean House of X number 2. If you need to check out the last video, the link to the playlist will be in the description. Now, my name is Dor, and this is SEM Comics. We are continuing our coverage of Hox and Pox. That's House of X, Power of X, with Power of X number 2. So our story starts off in year 10, where on Krakoa, and Cyclops is being briefed by Professor Xavier and Magneto about Orchis, about how they have a mother mold that's really close to the sun that will be mass producing sentinels, and how Orchis breaks down. So Professor Xavier lets Cyclops know that Orchis is mostly X-Shield and AIM agents, with some sword and hammer agents sprinkled in there too. But then Magneto chimes in and goes, and if you want to know the level of conviction, they even held up their nose long enough to bring in some ex-Hydra agents. Now, the reason why Magneto feels so strongly about Hydra is because he is Jewish, he was in the Holocaust, and Hydra is none but Nazis. But that's not even the biggest issue with Orchis. The biggest issue is they found plans that they are going to be building a Nimrod. And Cyclops goes, oh damn. If you are new to this whole X-Men thing, reason why that's a problem is because Nimrod has the ability to adapt to anybody's power. Like once he adapts to your power, he knows how to counteract it and can pretty much take you out. Even a person like Legion, who is an Omega level mutant, he is way up there when it comes to power, has issues with Nimrod. Nimrod normally beats him because he just adapts to whatever he's doing, and there you go. So they're pretty much like, yeah, we can't have this. And Magneto's like, remember, this will be a formal assault on an orbital station tens of millions of miles away, built by a secret organization whose sole purpose is to extinguish mutants. Can such a thing even be done? So Cyclops goes, does it need doing? Professor Xavier goes, yes, it will be done. We're gonna go ahead and put that on the back burner for now. So now we jump to 100 years in the future, and we're on asteroid K. And you got Wolverine, War, pretty much giving a breakdown of what happened on Earth. And he's pretty much telling who's ever in charge, who you're about to see who it is in a minute, that the team of 4 went down there, but only 2 came back, which was Cardinal and Rasputin 4. Salabel and Percival did not come back. Percival really hurts because I guess he had blackout powers, which now they can't use. So yeah, War's upset. And then whoever's in charge goes, you're gonna have to forgive him. War has a way of limiting perspective. It's a shortcoming, but its usefulness outweigh his limitations. Then he goes, do you really have it? Cardinal goes, yes. And he hands it to Apocalypse. When you reduce them all down, the machines is nothing but pure information, a repository of knowledge. Too much knowledge and the weak are paralyzed by choices. Too little knowledge and the foolish will jump head first into the mouths of the hungry enemy. But the right amount of knowledge is like the sword of victory. And he's like, don't get it twisted, my children. I would have sacrificed all of you to get this information. It's that important. You see, Apocalypse is a lot of things, but he's not a liar, and he will tell to you straight whether you want to hear it or not. So now we cut to Nimrod the Lesser in the Tower of Nimrod, and Nimrod is doing Nimrod things. He is just talking to himself, rambling along, and you got 2 dudes standing next to him. So the Nimrod asks him a question, and I guess the dude didn't realize, or he just spoke what was on his mind, and he goes, no, not really, I'd just rather you just keep speaking to yourself. Nimrod looks at him, dude realizes what he just said, and he goes, I apologize, it's been a costly day and I'm tired. So Nimrod's like, so are you tired as well? The other dude's like, no, I'm not tired at all. And Nimrod's like, I don't believe you, and blasts both of them to smithereens. I sound like Yosemite Sam. So then he picks up one of their skulls, and then he just keeps rambling along because, you know, Skull's not going to answer back. And he's like, you mutants came in secret. You had an objective. Seems like you accomplished it, but what was it? I see you, mutants. I know your ways. Whatever were you looking for? So back to Asteroid K, pretty much what the mutants were able to get their hands on was a encrypted location of some very important information, and they're leaving it up to Krakoa, who's also in the corpse of Doug Ramsey, to figure out exactly what that location is. So Krakoa breaks the encryption. They know where location that they're going. Wolverine is like, or War, it's like, it doesn't matter. The only reason why we've been successful up to this point is because we had Percival and he was using his powers. Now that he's gone, we can go there, but even if we get the information, nobody's going to survive the mission to even be able to use it. So Pacta starts talking. He goes, we were never going to be able to stop the onset of machines. My only question is why are they always pointed at us mutants? Why are we always the ones tested to see if we're fit for survival? So then he goes, look, we will take what we need and we will return. I guarantee our success because I will be leading this mission. So now we cut 1,000 years into the future. We see the librarian and he's talking to Nimrod, who has been reduced down to that flying little probe thing that's right next to his head. So then he asks him a question. He goes, did it work? And Nimrod goes, the perceived value of this system was in its celestial resources and not the living cultures. So in essence, he said it was supposed to be mined and not preserved. Are you starting to see how like the machines are allegory for like big, huge corporations and like governments that care about the resources, not really the people? And right at that moment, a bigger corporation or a bigger government comes down to talk to the librarian. It is the Technarchy or the Phalanx. And they pretty much tell the librarian that their world mine, yeah, they ate it. So the Phalanx is down here and they're like, as we was eating your world mine, we noticed that you had a message for us. So we came down here to say, what do you want? And the librarian says one word, ascension. All right, class, it's time to explain how these planetary societies work. A SI is considered a species intelligence. The machines are 1 SI. A hive is 10 SI. And intelligence is either 100 to 10,000 SIs. A good example of that is the Creed and their supreme intelligence. If you know, you know. I guess I spoke too premature earlier because 10,000 SIs, you have the Technarchy. At 100,000 SIs, you have a world mind. And at 1,000,000 SIs, you have the Phalanx. So now we cut back to 100 years into the future. And we got this guy, and he's mostly machine, and he's pretty much explaining how people need to lose their humanity and give in to the machines and be more machine-like. And there's only one way to do it. He has a baby, and there's this like device that's floating in like the air. It looks something like the Technarchy. It shoots this baby in the face with a beam, and now all of a sudden it looks like he infected him with a techno-organic virus. Somebody call Cable. But then there is an explosion, because there's always an explosion. And our heroes have come to maybe wreck shop. Like, I don't know. Is this the mission or is this not the mission? Maybe it's a distraction. We don't know. The only way you'll find out is by watching the next video. This comic book is so good, it is not funny. Like, if you don't think this comic book is good, you must not have a pulse, because this comic book is fantastic. My name is Dorian. This is SCM Comics. We are continuing our covers of Hox and Pox as House of X, Power of X, with House of X #3. So our story takes place in Krakoa, and you got Scott, and he's like, I have assembled a team of good, like-minded mutants that understand the mission parameters and is willing to go along with it anyway. So Professor Xavier was like, you put on a brave face, but I could sense some fear in you. And Scott's like, should I not be? Like, you're pretty much sending us on a suicide mission, but we're going along with it anyway. So Professor Xavier tries to backtrack and goes, look, you guys are making me very proud, and trust me, you're not going to die. I won't let you. That's all I'm saying about that. So on the next page, we see Cyclops go through the portal, walk to the Blackbird, and we see his team. It's Wolverine, Husk, Archangel, Monet St. Croix, Jean Grey, Nightcrawler, and Mystique. So Archangel and Husk are like, why no plants? If things are going to get as hairy as you say they might, then we might need a fast getaway. And Monet chimes in and is like, well, what if we fail? And there's a really good chance that we might fail. Then now the enemy has exactly what makes us special. They'll have the plants of Krakoa. We can't risk that. And Scott chimes in and goes, exactly. You hear that, Mystique? And Mystique goes, my ears work fine, Summers. So Jean's talking to Cyclops and she's worried about the crew that's up there because she feels like they're innocent. And Wolverine's like, they're not innocent. They're making killer robots to extinct us. How does that make them innocent? And Jean's like, they're not soldiers in a war, Logan. They're scientists that's scared for their own future. And somebody says, all right, punch it. And we see that they're actually leaving from their Krakoan base that's on the moon. And Wolverine goes, just scientists, huh? How exactly you think we went from sticks to bombs? And for the machines, this is their hierarchy. You have your basic sentinels. That's pretty much what the X-Men has been fighting for a very long time. You got master molds, you got mother molds, you got Omega Sentinel, and then you got Nimrod. So now we get to my favorite part of the comic. We are at the Project Achilles Superhuman Supermax, where we hear somebody say, we only have one case today, Judge. And he's like, huh, all quiet on the Western Front, huh? And AG goes, what we lack in volume, we make up in depravity, Your Honor. The defendant is being charged with felony break-in and entering, felony assault, felony theft, 2 counts of manslaughter, and I swear to God, if bad manners were something I could add to the list, I would. And the judge goes, well, you know how I feel about social grace. How about you, counselor? What do you got to say? And this dude is scared out of his ever-loving wits, and anybody else would too. And he tries to use the defense that he was like the wrong person at the wrong place at the wrong time. And the judge's like, yeah, no, counselor, that's not going to work. So he's like, all right, well, let's get on with it. How does your client plead? So then we see his Sabretooth and he goes, oh, I'm guilty, meat. I definitely have bad manners. And the judge goes, and the other charges? And he's like, yeah, I did those things too. But it doesn't matter. There hasn't been a place built that can hold me. And if I'm really being honest, it's not like I'm just going to sit here and let you judge me. Do you really think these chains is going to stop me from making your insides or outsides? Because, let me tell you, they can't. Then he sniffs the air and goes, you smell that? And the counselor goes, what? He's like, jasmine. He's like, what's that mean? And he goes, that means you're fired, counselor. And Emma Frost and 2 of her cuckoos walk in. So one of them goes, oh, look, it looks like the monkeys are playing with tools again. You see that, Miss Frost? And she goes, young lady, how many times have I told you that when we're in public, we don't use our mutant name? So in this instance, you will call me White Queen. And she goes, yes, Mom. So the judge likes, what's the meaning of this? And she goes, really not sure if that's a question you should be asking. Because there's some difference between what's getting ready to happen and what it really means. And the judge goes, enlighten me. So she goes, what's going to happen is that you are going to surrender Mr. Creed to me. One will go, Sabretooth. Oh yeah, thank you, Sabretooth. You're going to give him up because in anticipation of Krakoa becoming a sovereign state, all Krakoans on United States soil, naturally born or otherwise, now enjoy the privilege of diplomatic immunity, which is a recent gift from your State Department. And one of the cuckoos says, we have all the paperwork if you need it. And the other one goes, but you can totally leave the chains on if you want. So the AG's like, this isn't going to happen. And Emma's like, oh, it's going to happen. And as for what this means, well, this simply means that we don't answer you anymore. This judge is gangster as hell. He goes from being a normal judge to Judge Dredd. He gets up and goes, this guy's a killer as he is strapped, ready to shoot. So Emma's like, look, he is a bit of a monster. That I won't disagree. But he's our monster. And he won't be judged in a human court like this anymore. So the AG is like, no, not like this. Not today. Not on my watch. So she sticks the gun in Emma's face. And Emma's like, normally I would dominate your mind and make you stick that gun where your last boyfriend left you. But I've been told that the art of diplomacy is about equalizing power dynamics. So why don't you pretend that there is some larger American purpose being served here today, and I'll pretend like you could have actually stopped me. So they grab Sabretooth and they walk out, and Emma goes, this is a brave new world, darlings. best get used to it. So then we cut to the Orchis Forge, where you have Omega Sentinel and Dr. Gregor are pretty much walking and talking, discussing about the different things that they're going to get ready and do, when all of a sudden Dr. Gregor's husband hops on the radio and goes, "We got a little problem here." And she goes, "What's up, dear?" And he's like, "We got an incoming about 25 miles out." And she goes, "Friendly?" And he goes, "Absolutely not. It's the X-Men." So Dr. Gregor's like, "How in the hell? How they know about the mother mode?" And she's like, "Can we stop them?" And he goes, "Not in that bird. Their countermeasures are just too good." So Mega Sentinel's like, "Why don't we just recall the drones that are in Mercury?" And Dr. Gregor's husband's like, "Well, we already did. They're on their way, but they're going to get here too late." Dr. Gregor's like, "Damn it." So Dr. Gregor's husband goes, "Hey, cheer up, love. It's just a little fight for our survival. Nothing to worry about." So as the X-Men are flying in, they're getting shot at, and just like Dr. Gregor's husband said, their countermeasures are too good. So Wolverine's like, "Kurt, recon." And he goes, "Understood." So he bamps. Now it smells like farts. And then he goes, "Bam, bam, bam." Now it really smells like farts. And he finds himself right next to a Mega Sentinel and Dr. Gregor. And he goes, "Karima, what a surprise." Mega Sentinel goes, "Hello, Kurt." And Kurt goes, "Picking sides, are we?" And she goes, "Actually, ain't that what you guys did?" So he bamps out at her one more time. So it smells like farts. So Omega Sentinel's like, they're going to go for the control collars. Dr. Gregor's like, "Hey, they got a teleporter." And Omega Sentinel's like, his name is Nightcrawler. So Dr. Gregor's husband's like, "I read the file. I'm aware. I'm going to send all the troops to the hangar to try to buy us some time." She goes, "Okay, be careful." And Omega Sentinel's like, "That's disappointing." Dr. Gregor goes, "What?" So Omega Sentinel's like, "It's a very linear plan for a foe that is not linear, and that is a rumble." Omega Sentinel's like, "See?" So the X-Men land on Orchis base. Nightcrawler's back, and he goes, "They got an Omega Sentinel." Wolverine's like, "Well, we'll have to deal with that when we have to. Right now, first things first, and that's to get that collar off." So they start to cut their way in, and Dr. Gregor's husband is standing right where they're cutting at, and he goes, "Damn it, damn it." So he goes, "Got some bad news, dear. Unfortunately, they got all their bases covered. Any rational thing that we do, they already thought of it. So now we got to do something that's irrational." And she goes, "What are you doing?" And he's pretty much setting up a bomb and goes, "I know I joked a lot about it, but I really wish we would have had kids." Dr. Gregor yells, "No." He pushes the button and blows him and the X-Men up. For those of you who feel like the House and Power of X have been moving kind of slow, there's a reason why they feel like this is a masterpiece. For all you action people, things are about to speed up. My name is Dorian. This is SCM Comics. We are continuing our coverage of Hox and Pox. That's House of X, Power of X, with Power of X number 3. So our story starts off with a breakdown of the surviving solo mutants. You have Apocalypse and his 4 horsemen. Obviously, Apocalypse is the original Apocalypse. War is Wolverine, and this is the original James Howlett, one you all know and love. Death is Zorn, the original Zorn. Now, if you guys know the history of Zorn and you're like, the original Zorn? I mean, yeah, it's so convoluted, it's not funny. But yeah, this is Zorn, not changed, this original. Pestilence is North. He is a 2nd generation chimera made by Mr. Sinister. He's a cross between Lord Dane and Emma Frost. And Famine is pretty much Krakoa and the dead body of Cypher. So it's a symbiote relationship, almost like Venom. So on the next page, we have 2 that didn't make it. That was Scylla Bell. She was the Hound that we met in Power of X number 1. And Percival, who said one line and pretty much bit the bullet. He was actually an original pureblood mutant. He had like ghost mutant powers, and he was the reason why they was able to get in and out of places undetected. So he was a big loss. You have Cardinal, who is a 3rd generation chimera. He's a cross between Nightcrawler, Jean Grey or Rachel Summers, and Ajax. We also have Rasputin 4, who is a 5 gifted chimera. She's 3rd generation. We got Quentin Quire, we got Colossus, we got Kitty Pryde, we got Lord Kitty, and we got Gunther Bane, which most of you guys probably don't even know who that is. Like, he debuted in like X-Men number 8 back in like the 60s. So yeah, it's an old character. And then we got Mother Akuba, which, if you guys are paying attention to House of X number 2, and you dealt with the life that dealt specifically with Apocalypse, then you know who this is. So on the next page, we see Omega Sentinel, and she's like, the Church of Ascendancy is on fire. And Nimrod is pretty much doing his own thing, and he doesn't give two shits. So Mega Sentinel's like, we should probably look into it because they're saying that it's the mutants that are attacking. And Nimrod's like, why in the hell would they attack the church? When they attack, they normally attack us directly. So Mega Sentinel's like, look, there's probably some kind of direct correlation between what they're doing right now and what you're trying to figure out. Now, this is still the beastly Nimrod, but it's also the silly Nimrod. He goes, such a pity, the tragedy of it all. Just wonder why I'll get any sleep at all. And the Mega Sentinel's like, we don't sleep, Nimrod. In fact, that's why the mutants hate us, because we don't dream. And Nimrod's like, what good are dreams? Like, what good is their dream? It's just about as distinct as they are. So Mega Sentinel gives him that I am serious woman stare. And Nimrod's like, what? She goes, look, their inconsistent actions are bothering me and we need to investigate. Nimrod pretty much goes, fine, go ahead, investigate, do whatever you need to do. And she goes, you going with me? It's like, no, I'm not coming with you. So she flies off and goes, suit yourself. And he's like, I always do. Now we cut back to the church and you got Cardinal who is stabbing this priest into his shoulder. And the priest is like, why are you doing this? And Cardinal's like, normally I am a pacifist, but it comes a time when even somebody like myself has to make a point. So I ate a terminal apocalypse seed, which is going to overcome my genetic disposition to nonviolence. And even though I'm going to die and it's probably going to hurt, I'd rather die this way than the way that you're going to die. Like, why do you betray your own kind for the machines? I don't just do it for the great machines. I do it for God. So I don't know who got lit up in the background, but somebody got lit up. And the priest is like, you see? God's here. As Omega Sentinel comes with a bunch of Sentinels behind her. So Zorn's like, sweet annihilation. This dude's been begging to die ever since this series started. So Rasputin 4 is like, all right, they brung everyone, just like we expected. We gotta hold them off. So now we cut to Apocalypse, Wolverine, and Krakoa Doug, or Doug Krakoa. They're pretty much in the machine's archives, and they're looking for the exact date that Nimrod came online. But then there's an alert, and now Nimrod knows that they are there, and he is on his way. Krakoa and Doug pretty much goes through the systems and he goes, ha, I got it. We can go. Wolverine is like, hold on, time out. I smell something. He turns a corner and he gets ridiculously lit up. I mean, he's lucky he's Wolverine. Anybody else would have been done. So obviously the person who provided the fireworks was Nimrod, and he goes, interesting to find you here. There is nothing located in this sector except for old data and old machines. Why are you guys here? So on the next page, we see Cardinal is pretty much done. And you got Rasputin 4 with Zorn right in front of Omega Sentinel. And Omega Sentinel's like, we just got word. Nimrod's dealing with your other compadre, so this little distraction, yeah, it's not working anymore. So Rasputin 4 is pretty much telling her to stay back. And then Zorn's like, no, come closer, because this is an end that I always wanted. So the Mega Sentinel's like, oh, you're threatening with the singularity? I don't think you guys will. You guys like to hang on to things even though you ain't got nothing to really hang on to. Besides, you have any idea what lies at the heart of a real black hole? I'll give you a hint. It's where we're headed. It's where we're all headed. So the Rasputin 4 goes, you know what? You're right, I don't. And she takes off Zorn's mask. Rasputin 4 goes, no. And there is a ridiculous black hole explosion. Or implosion. I don't know. It's something. So on the next page, we see Nimrod go flying. So, Insaminor has something to do with that. So he turns to Wolverine and goes, you need to take this and get out of here. And Wolverine goes, no, I'm staying. And Apocalypse like, if you could see yourself, you would know how foolish that statement is. Get out of here. I'll be right behind you. Krakoa opens up the gate and Apocalypse stares down 3 Nimrods. So Wolverine is going through the gate. He turns around and see Apocalypse catching a swift one. So while Apocalypse is getting jumped by Nimrod, Wolverine comes up to this tomb. Now, if you're an Apocalypse fan, you know he ain't no punk. And he gives one Nimrod, everything he wanted and more as he crushes his head. But the other 2 jump on him and pretty much start to overwhelm Apocalypse. And Wolverine opens up the tomb and we see it's Myra X. Or Myra Apocalypse. It's the Myra from The Ninth Life. He uploads a crystal into Myra that has information about when Nimrod goes online. He goes, "You got it?" She goes, "Yes." So she goes, "What now?" And Wolverine's like, "He said if we succeed, the old man pretty much told me to send you on your way because there's nothing to save here." And he goes, "I'm sorry." And she's like, "It's okay. I got what I needed. And besides, this is what you do." As Wolverine stabs the bejesus out of her. So now to give you guys an update, we saw how the 9th life pretty much ended, and they got the information for the 10th life, which we are currently covering right now. And as you can see, the 6th life we still don't have. Why? Because that's the life that went 1,000 years, and then we got to deal with the Liberian, which we're still covering as Power of X continues. Anything I say past this point is pretty much rambling. So, you know what? DJ, turn it up. There are some stories that are so good, you're just like... My name is Dorian, this is SCM Comics. We continue our coverage of Hox and Pox with House of X, number 4. So I almost didn't even want to start off with this page, because if you're a X-Men fan, especially like an old school X-Men fan, then you know about this. But just in case from people that are kind of like brand new, because this might be your first video, these are 2 big examples of why mutants are the redheaded stepchild of the Marvel Universe. You have Genosha, where 16.5 million mutants were killed by the Wild Sentinels, and Cassandra Nova. I know all you Deadpool Wolverine fans are like, don't forget about Cassandra Nova. Yes, she was a big part of it. Then you had the Scarlet Witch, who was considered a mutant at the time, and then she's not a mutant, but I still feel like she is. Pretty much took out the majority of the mutant population's powers, only leaving 198 of them with their powers intact. With no powers, a lot of them died horrible deaths. It was crazy. And just to remind you guys that not only did she take out 98% of the mutant population's powers in the 616, but she did it across the multiverse. So yeah, certified beast. Put a stamp on it. Not Beast Hank McCoy, like her powers are like beastly. You know what, let's just move on. So the story starts off at Krakoa, and you got Magneto and you got Professor Xavier. There was Storm, one of the Stepford Cuckoos, and Beast is there, and they're trying to get communications to the X-Men that are in space, who just got blown up. You see, what they're doing is they're having the Stepford Cuckoos like help out Beast and Storm, who don't have telepathy, combined with Professor Xavier, so that they can all talk to Jean, who is on the ship. So Professor Xavier is asking Jean what the situation is, and she's like, it is bad. Archangel and Husk are dead, so that means those 2 got clapped before they even got off the ship. Nightcrawler got some kind of internal injury. Wolverine, if he didn't have an adamantium skeleton, he wouldn't have a left arm. So Magneto, who also has a Stepford Cuckoo next to him, was like, can you finish the mission? Jean's like, I don't think we can. Scott's like, oh no, we're finishing this mission. And Wolverine chimes in and is like, we gotta finish this mission, either we get them or they get us. So Scott right there comes up with a plan. Pretty much he's gonna have Nightcrawler take him, Wolverine, and Mystique to the different control panels that's holding the mother mold, and he wants Jean and Monet to stay on the ship for communication purposes. So now we cut to inside the station, where Dr. Gregor is freaking out about her husband, who pretty much just committed suicide to try to stop the X-Men, and Omega Sentinel standing there, and she's pretty much like, are you gonna cry about this, or are you gonna do something about it? So she finally gathers herself, and she tells the new captain, whoever he is, that she has a plan. So as she's going over said plan with the captain, all you hear is Kergunga, Kergunga. If you want to know what that is 2 of the 4 collars that's holding the mother mold were released. And the 2 people that got it done is Wolverine with a whole bunch of dead Orchis agents around him, and Nightcrawler, who just tied up 2 scientists, it looks like, and pulled a lever. So Jean and Monet are pretty much keeping everybody at Krakoa up to date with what's going on. All of a sudden, all you hear is this sawing noise, and the Orchis agents are now trying to get into the ship. So Monet takes Jean, puts her into this escape pod. Jean's like, are you coming? She's like, somebody gotta hold these dudes off. And Jean's like, well, it's gonna be really hard for me to keep communications over with Krakoa when it's both of us doing it at the same time. And Monet is like, well, looks like you're just gonna have to be Marvel Girl, and you're gonna have to try harder. And she hits the button, Jean escapes, the Orchis agents are now in, and then Monet, she transforms into Penance and lets them know that, whew, you guys bit off way more than you can chew. and start slicing and dicing. So then we cut to Cyclops, who's taking no prisoners either, as he is taking out everybody with his optical blast. He pulls down on his lever, and we have her kerkunk. He's like, all right, all that leaves is Mystique. Mystique, you there? And she's like, stop screaming in my head, Summers. I'm here. I got turned around, but I'm on my way there. But as she turns around, she sees Omega Sentinel and Dr. Gregor just standing there. Dr. Gregor hits a button and she opens up the airlock, and Mystique gets sucked out into space. Horrible way to die. So then Dr. Gregor tells the stand-in captain that she has the last control collar secured to send the team to help her. She turns to Omega Sentinel and lets her know that she's going to turn on the mother mode. And Omega Sentinel's like, oh, time out. We haven't fully got tested as yet. Like, if we turn it on now, it can be insane. And she was like, well, I'm gonna have to take that chance because my husband didn't die for nothing. So there's like a 30-second countdown going on. Jean is pretty much using all of her mental ability to the point to where she's bleeding from her nose, and it just looks bad because they're not going to be able to get to that last control collar. So the mother mode is pretty much starting to turn on. All of a sudden you hear, Scott, we can get there. And it's Nightcrawler and Wolverine. Now, they understand that this is a suicide mission. They are really, really, really close to the sun. That's why it's so bright. Their plan is to have Nightcrawler bamf him out and Wolverine cut the control collar with his claws. They are not going to make it. It's not only close to the sun, but they're in space and they don't have spacesuits. So yes, this is a suicide mission. And all you hear is a bamf. So now it smells like farts. But it don't smell like farts outside the space station because Nightcrawler and that bamf are incinerated damn near instantly. And the only why Wolverine's hanging on is because of his healing factor and his adamantium skeleton, which you can see right now because, you know, he's pretty much burning. So the mother mode realizes what's going on and it's trying to fight back. It sends some kind of straps to go around Wolverine's left hand, but Wolverine is the best at what he does, and what he does is not very nice to Sentinels. So he slashes one more time, breaks the control collar, and him and the mother mode are now on a collision course for the sun. Horrible way to die. Horrible. So Scott sees exactly what happens and he goes, bravest man I know. Then lets Professor Xavier know exactly what happened and that the mission is now complete. So Scott's plan is to get a spacesuit and get to Jean because her escape pod is floating out there. Use this power to push them towards Earth. And Jean's like, that plan is half-baked as hell and probably won't survive re-entry. And Scott's like, what else we got? We got nothing else. But we don't get anything close to that plan because as Scott is running, he is shot in the back. So Omega Sentinel's the one that shot Scott in the back, and then Dr. Gregor comes out with her cosmic shotgun and pretty much is like, yeah, we ain't taking no prisoners, and shoots Scott in the head. I mean, obliterated his head. Dead. So as Jean is screaming no, she ain't got a lot of time to grieve because all these worker Sentinels come out of nowhere, grab her escape pod, and pretty much start destroying it with her in it. So the mission was a complete success. And there were no survivors whatsoever. And Professor Xavier's just standing there. He's like, no more. No more, no more, no more. This is another book that just makes you go. My name is Dorian. This is SEO Comics. We are continuing our coverage of Hox and Pox with Power of X #4. So our story starts off in year 1 of the Krakoan era. And we're at Bar Sinister. Yes, Bar Sinister. So there's a person at the gate, obviously it's a Sinister clone, and he's wearing armor, and he's like, state your business. And he's like, and look, we don't take sad people with their sad problems. And he's like, oh shoot, you got a cape. Well, that's pretty cool. And well, do you have an appointment? Obviously you probably don't have an appointment because if you have a cape, then you probably don't have an appointment. So Xavier's like, look, we don't have an appointment, but it's very important that we talk to Nathaniel Essen. So he takes off his helmet. Like I said, he's a Sinister clone, and it goes, oh, which one? There's many of us. And Magneto's like, we'll settle for the one in charge. So then this Sinister goes, the one in charge, huh? Well, aren't you something? Yes. The outfit's ridiculous, but you got an air about you. But your friend, I don't know, we don't take sickly people or anything like that, so I don't know about him. All of a sudden, Magneto picks him up, because like I said, he has on armor. And Professor Xavier's like, hold on, Eric, we need him. So Magneto's like, no, Charles. This man needs to decide whether he wants to escort us to the side or he wants to continue doing what he's doing and suffer the consequences. 2 minutes later, all you see is this dude bowing, talking about Mr. Sinister. I present to you the mutants, Magneto and Professor Charles Xavier. He got the point. So Charles is like, hello, thank you for seeing us. I just wanted to say, in a sense, the Seminal girl goes, stop before either one of you say anything else. I just want to make it perfectly clear that I love the cape. Why am I not wearing a cape? Like, shouldn't I be wearing a cape too? So the butler looking sinister sitting there is like, an outrage, sir. Honestly, I should always thought you should wear a cape. So then the one on the throne goes, so why'd you say anything? And then the butler sinister goes, slipped my mind. And one on the throne is like, execute him now. I don't know if the guards are sinisters or what, but phew, they came in there and they started chopping this dude up. I mean, you see his hand dismembered and everything. So now that the craziness is over with, Professor Xavier gets right to it and he goes, we know how good you are with genetics and so on and so forth. And the one sister sitting on the throne was like, yeah, we was trying to keep that a secret, but I'm so amazing. I knew it was going to get out sooner or later. Now, if you guys are new to Sinister, yeah, he's like this. He's just arrogant. Think Dr. Doom, except for this dude cracks jokes. So Xavier goes on and says, we know that you've been collecting samples of a lot of mutants, and we can actually help you out with that. Give you more examples, except for you gotta do something for us in the future, which we'll go over at a later time. So this Sinister is like, I don't know. I don't think I really need to take your offer or anything like that. And all you hear is blam! This dude gets shot in the head. And we see our tried and true Sinister, your old school X-Men fan, you know who this is. The Sinister with the ripped up cape. And he's like, I will accept your offer. Psst, it's me, the one with the mutant gene. And they're like, we can see that. So Sinister's like, okay, what I gotta do? So Xavier's like, I need you to continue your good work. And then I need you to forget about what you're doing and that we ever came here until the day I tell you to remember. So now we cut to a few months ago and we're on Krakoa and Cypher is meeting the island for the first time with Professor Xavier. So Professor Xavier's like, what do you think? And Cypher's like, oh, cool. This is a secret island where mutants come to die, right? Fantastic. Now, the reason why Cypher's like this is because before Jonathan Hickman started writing, Krakoa just pretty much has a bad rap. It was a mutant island that fed off of mutant energy. It captured the original 5 X-Men. Professor Xavier sent out a secret team that had Scott's little brother Vulcan on it. They pretty much all died except for Darwin and Vulcan. The only reason Vulcan didn't die is because he was next to Darwin. And Darwin's mutant powers to survive anything. But that's another story for another day. And then they had to bring in a new team, which consists of like Colossus, Wolverine, Storm, Nightcrawler, to actually defeat the island and rescue the original 5 X-Men. Actually, Scott got off, but he had to go back for the other 4. Let me know in the comments how good that summary was, because I know I forgot something. So Professor Xavier explains that over the years, he's been talking to the island, and slowly but surely they developed a kinship. And the island is not nearly as bad as was first believed. So the professor's like, you know what? Why don't I just let you meet the island? So they go through some trees and goes, say hello, Doug. This is Krakoa. So Doug says hello and Krakoa speaks. And he's like, oh, okay. Kind of broken. I kind of make sense of some of it. I'm gonna have to talk to it more. And Professor Xavier has been talking to it mentally. So Doug starts to realize that when Professor Xavier talks to Krakoa mentally, it's more kind of like childish. Whereas Doug is talking to Krakoa, it's a more grown-up conversation, and he actually gets a pretty good story from Krakoa. So Doug explains how Krakoa used to be one island called Okara, and it was split in half by a demon that was wielding the Ebony Blade. The Twilight Sword is the Twilight Sword, not the Ebony Blade, the Twilight Sword. These demons were pretty much going to take over until a warrior in blue showed up, Apocalypse, and battled these demons. The only way to pretty much save the world from these demons was to push Arako, which is the other part of Krakoa, into a dimension his 4 warriors, which are his children, had to stay and fight these demons in that other dimension, in a nutshell. So anyway, Doug is starting to kind of dig what's going on here. Professor Xavier's like, oh, like starting to come around. This is my plan. Professor Xavier gives it to him via telepathy, and Doug goes, wow, that's ambitious. And Professor's like, yeah, but I'm pretty sure we could pull it off. How long would it take for you to like build up like an interface with Krakoa? He was like, yeah, a few months, maybe a year. So Professor Xavier throws out a travel bag and is like, all right, good. I'll leave you to your work. So now we cut to 1,000 years into the future. The people that are in charge here in this timeline want to become a part of the Phalanx, who are a Dominion. You see, they want to become a part of the Dominion. They want to become a part of the collective. Only thing is that the Dominion only takes things that are useful, that they deem useful. To become a part of the collective means you have something to offer them that they can use later on down the road. Humans or organic material to the Phalanx normally don't have anything of interest to offer. So typically they just destroy those organic materials. But there are scientists there that are trying to, like I said, trick the Phalanx into letting them ascend. And Nimrod the Greater, who now looks like Nimrod the Lesser, was actually kind of making fun of the librarian, saying it's foreboding, isn't it, that they want us and not you. In other words, they want the machines, but not the humans. So now we cut back to Krakoa in the present day, I guess you could say. And we have Polaris and Magneto. And Polaris asks Magneto, is there any good in the humans? And Magneto goes on a long-winded answer, pretty much to say that the humans taught us society. We now have a society. So Professor Xavier and Storm come down this long staircase, and then we meet the 5. Tempest, Proteus, Hope, Elixir, and Egg, even though I like to call them gold balls. I know it's not gold balls anymore, but I still like gold balls. So Magneto is telling Polaris pretty much how this process works, how it starts with Egg. I still like gold balls. That at first I was like, these gold balls are like useless, but he produces a ton of them. Well, come to find out, they're not just gold balls, they're eggs, building material. Then Proteus comes in and does his little reality warping. Then it gets injected with some mutant DNA. That's things are sinister. Then Elixir comes in, does his thing, and then Tempest is there to pretty much speed up the aging process. And Hope is there to increase everybody's power to their maximum level. And while that's going on, we see our X-Men team that got massacred up there at the Orchid Station are now all back. And Professor Xavier says, to me, my X-Men. So then Polaris is like, but wouldn't they just be like mindless mutant bodies? And that's when the Magneto explains that's where Cerebro comes in, because the secondary function is to locate mutants around the world. Its primary function is to record the minds of all mutants that it come across. So once the 5 brings you back, Professor Xavier can use Cerebro to pretty much put your memories back into your mind from when it last recorded you. That's going to be important down the road. And the 8 mutants that were brutally massacred, but way too popular to kill off, are now back. So then Professor Xavier goes, even knowing I can bring you back, a part of me dies every time one of you do. So let's not do that again, shall we? So the Storm's like, on your feet, mutants. The world might not be ready for you to come back, but Krakoa is. When I first started reading comic books, I hated world building. I just love the action. You know, I want Wolverine slashing. I want the X-Men fighting like some kind of enemy. Like, I just wanted action. But what is action if you don't know what's going on? That's what world building's for. And these next 2 videos, decent amount of world building. My name is Dorian. This is SCM Comics. We are continuing our coverage of Hox and Pox with House of X, number 5. So our story starts off on Krakoa, and Storm is your MC. She's pretty much letting everybody know that things are going to be different now. And the reason why they're going to be different is because of the 5. And they come out and they're greeted like rock stars. But if the 5 are the Rolling Stones, then the Beatles are the mutants that they just brought back. And they're naked as hell. The only thing that they gave somebody to wear was Cyclops goggles, just so he doesn't kill anybody. So Storm goes and asks them their name, you know, to make sure they're them. And also, too, to make sure that they're them, she's like, what makes you my brother? And then Scott explains how Storm pretty much challenged him for leadership and beat him. This is back when she had no powers. And he says that you showed me what being a strong leader is. Obviously, Storm remembers that, and it's like, this is my brother, but he's more than my brother. He is mutant, as they all cheer. And then she goes to Jean Grey and it's like, okay, what makes you you? And Jean goes, oh, there's only one me. There's only ever one of me. That's good enough for Storm. She goes, all right, she is my sister, but she's more than that. She is, and everybody cheers again, mutant. Then we get to Monet, And Storm goes, I guess, to touch her, and she goes, don't touch me. Storm's like, yep, that's Monet. She's my sister, and she is mutant. So Xavier and Magneto are talking, and Xavier is like, man has killed millions of mutants over the years, and now we can bring them back. And Magneto's like, yep, we got to bring back the ghosts of Genosha. This ain't right till we bring them back. So while they were talking, Storm was still introducing everybody, and then they got around all the resurrected mutants to celebrate them. So now we cut to United Nations, where they're doing a vote to see if Krakoa will be recognized as a nation. And you got Professor Xavier and Emma Frost, two of the most powerful telepaths there is. And Professor Xavier is trying to let this kind of go down naturally. Emma, no, she ain't having that. So if anybody's having any doubts, she's changing their minds. And Professor Xavier knows that she's doing it. Beast is there too, which is crazy because this is like the balding Beast, which it kind of made no sense. Like, he has fur everywhere, yet and still it looks like he's balding. How's that even possible? And this is the nicest you're ever going to see him, because he is going to go darker than dark in this whole Krakoan era. So the next page, we see the mutant diplomacy and how some countries just do not want to mess with Krakoa. Like, you have Madripoor, and the reason being is political. Madripoor ain't messing with him. Neither is Latveria, same thing, political. I like it once you get to Africa. Then you got Wakanda, and it clearly states is they don't need mutant drugs. And then you got the other countries in Africa, and they're like, well, we got Wakanda, so why would we need your drugs? And if you've been living underneath a rock, the reason why Wakanda doesn't need mutant drugs is because they are extremely advanced. Extremely. So they probably already have all these drugs. They don't like to share, just with some of the African countries around them. That's about it. So now we're at my favorite part. You got Wolverine, and he's standing right at the Krakoan gates, and he's like, Chuck, it is not too late to change your mind. And Magneto's like, why would we change our minds? Like, would you not have me here as well? I halfway expect the Wolverine to turn around and be like, didn't you like take out all my adamantium out my body and almost kill me? And also too, the whole reason why we was even up there is because you decided to create this crazy EMP that killed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, it's the Fatal Attraction story. Playlist will be in the description. You got Cypher and Sage, and they're like, all right, here they come. And who are they? Well, say hello to the bad guys. I know that was horrible Scarface impression. Horrible. Like, Scott Hall's probably ruling his grave right now because that was bad. You got Mr. Sinister, you got Exodus, and you got Apocalypse, which these three alone have all kinds of history. So Apocalypse like, yes, I know. It's been a long time, Krakoa. And all of a sudden, all these birds start flying around, and it freaks out Magneto. And you know, you gotta be doing something to freak out Magneto. Apocalypse like, yeah, me and Krakoa, we go back a long ways. And then Wolverine's like, well, is there going to be a problem? And Apocalypse like, why would there be a problem, Wolverine? You have finally done what I've been trying to get you guys to do for centuries. All mutants together, one place. So then Magneto's like, all right, then I need to hear you say the words. And Apocalypse goes, we are one people from this day forward. And Professor Xavier's like, all right, then let it be known that Krakoa is for all mutants. And Professor Xavier shakes Apocalypse's hand and goes, welcome home. Remember, the theme for today is world building. My name is Dorian. This is SEM Comics. We are continuing our coverage of Hox and Pox, The Power of X, number 5. Our story starts off in year 1 of the X-Men in Dallas, Texas, where you got Professor Xavier meeting with Forge. And what I want to know is, what kind of aquarium, for one, allows drinking, and for two, is big enough to have a big old whale in there? Like, you see the size of that whale? Like, come on now. Like, what you guys doing in Texas? Please let me know in the comments. Anyway, the reason why Professor Xavier is meeting with Forge is because he wants Forge to build like a huge backup database for Cerebro, so that when they scan a mutant signature and take in everything that is of that mutant, it needs to go somewhere. And Forge is like, that is damn near impossible. Like, This amount of space that we would need hasn't been invented. So then Professor Xavier is like, what if I give you a cheat code? And Ford's like, what do you mean a cheat code? And he goes, oh, that's right. You got access to Shi'ar technology. And Professor Xavier's like, that's right. Now, for those of you who don't know, Professor Xavier and Melandra, who was the Empress, might still be the Empress of the Shi'ar Empire. I know she was, and then she got overthrown. But anyway, that's his boo thing, so that's why he has access to Shi'ar technology. So there's some back and forth going on, and then ultimately, Professor Xavier's like, all I need to know is, are you able to build this, Forge? And Forge looks like, come on now, it's my mutant ability. So now we cut to the Louvre in the year 10, which kind of confused me, but you know what, just go with it. So she's looking at a statue, and then all of a sudden, somebody says psychically, everybody out. So everybody starts clearing out, except for her. And then once she's standing there, Professor Xavier shows up, and so does Magneto. So now there is no love lost between Emma Frost, Professor Xavier, and Magneto. They're telling her about Krakoa, and you know, Emma's like, oh, we're doing a whole mutant island thing again. Like, it didn't work out last time, and she takes like personal offense to that because she feels like that's one of her biggest failures because her team was on there and they all died. Every last one of them. If you don't know what I'm talking about your notion. So they know they're going to be building this thing up pretty quick once they start letting people in. And if they want to become a real nation, then they're going to have to utilize Emma Frost's political ties. So Emma's like, what's going to make it different this time? Like, what can possibly make it different this time? And Professor Xavier and Magneto are like, you know what? We can show you better than we can tell you. She goes to Krakoa. She's like standing on like this cliff, and she goes, all right, one more time for the children. I'm in. So then she's like, all right, what do you need from me? You know, oh, what they need. Whew. So now, for those of you who don't know, Professor Xavier is a billionaire. Emma Frost is a billionaire. It's a little bit bigger billionaire. And she's a billionaire because of her business that she runs. And no, it's not the Hellfire Club. She actually got into the Hellfire Club because she is a successful businesswoman. You see, the reason why they need Emma in there, not just for her political ties, but her company and the Hellfire Club knows how to distribute on like a global scale. So they're like the Amazon of the mutant world. And they need to distribute these drugs. And the Hellfire Club is the best way for them to do it. Man, the more I talk about this, it's not like Professor Xavier and Magneto. It's like Ghost and Tommy, man. Like, this is crazy. This might as well be an episode of Power. But they don't just need her. They also need her to bring back Sebastian Shaw. And Emma Frost is like, I just got rid of that motherfucker. Like, why would I bring him back? So they're like, yeah, we're going to be selling these drugs the right way. But we also are going to need to be selling these drugs on the black market to get as much money as possible. Like, oh my God. Like I said, episode of Power. And that's where Sebastian Shaw comes in, because who knows the black market better than the Black King? So they also tell her about a council that's being formed on Krakoa, which is going to be a quiet council, some of the best storytelling ever. And she gets 2 seats. And she's like, if I got to bring back Sebastian Shaw, then I'm going to need 3. So now in the last video, we saw all the bad guys come. Now we see the summoning where Professor Xavier astral projected himself to talk to Exodus and the Acolytes, talk to Sinister, talking to Omega Red, talking to Gorgon. He also talked to Namor, and they had a lively conversation. But in a nutshell, Namor pretty much told him, go f*** yourself. So now we go 1,000 years into the future, and you have the Phalanx. And the Liberian and the, I guess you could say, humans, barely, are still trying to get accepted into the Phalanx Dominion. And one of the elders was accepted, but he was also destroyed. And the Liberian's like, what the hell's going on? And he's asking this to Nimrod the Lesser, because Nimrod went from being like a Great Dane to a Yorkie. So Nimrod's like, we don't have enough data to come up with like a projection. And the Liberian's like, give me your best guess. So there is a lot of smart talk. Like, Jonathan Hickman is very, very, very intelligent. In a nutshell, pretty much Nimrod comes up with the conclusion that kind of we already knew about the Phalanx. They care about technology and machines. They do not like organics. That's why they take over organics and turn them into machines. So if you want to be a part of this dominion, you're going to be a machine. And now we come to the moment where everything changed. You got Professor Xavier, Magneto, and Moira. Hope I said that right for all you fanatic fans who say I say it wrong. And they're standing around Cerebro, and Magneto's like, "Are you ready?" Professor Xavier's like, "Ready." And they're like, "All right, let's change the world." Professor Xavier puts on the helmet, and then he says to the world, "Humans of planet Earth, I am the mutant Charles Xavier, and I bring you a message of hope." He tells them about the mutant scientists and how they came up with these mutant drugs. One that will pretty much cure any kind of disease of the mind, another one that will help you recover from just about anything, and one that will also extend your life. His dream was to develop these drugs and just give them to the world. Just give it out to them. But the way that the human and mutant relationships are, humans can't partake in these drugs, but they will do so at a cost. And then he also lets them know that Krakoa will be a mutant nation, and they will be recognized as a nation. You see, my dream was for humans and mutants to coexist together. Unfortunately, that dream was a lie. Closes out by saying, "We are the future. We are the Earth's true inheritors. You closed your eyes last night believing that this world would be yours forever. That was a dream, and like mine, it was a lie. Here is the new truth. While you slept, the world changed." And now we're at the issue where I feel this was the real start of the fall of House of X. Because now you're getting into stuff that maybe you shouldn't have got into. My name is Dora, and this is SCM Comics. We are continuing our coverage of Hox and Pox with House of X, number 6. The story starts off with a breakdown of the Quiet Council. You have Autumn, Professor X, Magneto, Apocalypse. You have Winter, which is Mr. Sinister, Exodus, and Mystique. You have Spring, which is Emma Frost, Sebastian Shaw, and a Red Queen to be named, Kitty Pryde. And then you have Summer, which you have Storm, Jean Grey, and Nightcrawler. And then you have Krakoa, who's represented by the Tree and Cypher. You also have the captains of Krakoa, which, I'm not gonna lie, almost forgot about mention. You have Cyclops, Gorgon, Bishop, and Magic. But then we have all of our favorite mutants walking into the Quiet Council chambers. And when I was seeing this page, I remember saying to myself, I've never thought in a million years I'll ever see this. All these mutants sitting together, not trying to kill each other. So the Nightcrawler goes, it appears our first order of business is the oldest kind of business on the planet. Judgment. As we see Sabretooth and a water bubble gets dropped right in the middle of the Quiet Council. And he's like, somebody better start talking or it's about to get real red real quick up in here. And the bull starts right now. So Magneto starts it off and he's like, we are now a nation and a nation needs laws. And it's up to us at this council to establish those laws. So then Professor Xavier is like, look, and we know that everybody in here isn't like the greatest people in the world, but be it as it may, it's up to this room to establish the laws. So the senator's like, is he talking about me? Because I feel like he's talking about me. It doesn't matter. I'm going to say what I need to say. You can't back Sinister into a corner. And Exodus is like, keep talking to me, and I promise you, you won't be talking anymore. And Sinister is like, this man wants to commit mutant on mutant crime. Throw this man in jail. So then Apocalypse is like, look, if you can't kill anybody, how the hell are we going to be tested? Like, you got to find out if you're worthy by finding out if you can survive. Like, if you could just come back, what's the point? And Storm's like, you could not be serious. And Jean's like, he's real serious, like extremely serious about this. So then Jean goes, all right, so I think the opposite should be true. That killing somebody who can't come back should be the highest crime, which means that killing a human should be against the law. And Mystique is a real one. She goes, yeah, okay. So when they come for us, and they will, you're trying to tell me that we can't defend ourselves? And Magneto's like, that's the argument as old as time. Is it murder if it's in self-defense? So then Professor Xavier goes, I find no fault in it either. Is everybody else agreed? Apocalypse? So Apocalypse like, I'm not belabor the point. If you want to do this, by all means do it. So the first law is a mutant cannot kill a human. So then Sabretooth goes, oh, I get it. You're trying to make an example of me. Well, that goes both ways, meat. I'm going to carve you into little. And Emma goes, quiet. And he's sitting there, he's trying to talk, but he's like babbling. And he goes, blah, 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 little, blah, 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 pieces. And then Jean goes, quiet. And now he's drooling. So the Sinister goes, the drool does it for me. This has been fun. What else we going to talk about? So then Sebastian Shaw goes, property rights, wealth, currency. And Doug's like, ho, ho, ho. I'm out, homeboy. Krakoa is alive. I don't know if you knew that. So there's no property rights, and you're not going to be auctioning off for some kind of currency, or you're not going to be taking its natural resources. No, none of that. So X is like, look, this land is sacred as sacred can get. So Doug's right. We're going to respect this land. So then Mystique is like, hold on, wait a minute. We got one more thing to talk about. And I think the holiest of holies should talk about it. She's talking about her son, Nightcrawler. She goes, so what would God do in this instance? So Kurt's like, I don't know what God would do, but I know what we need to do. We need to make more mutants. So Professor Xavier goes, all right, we got our 3 laws. Make more mutants, murder no man, and respect the sacred land. The third one's a good one. The other 2 should not have made those laws. So now Professor Xavier goes, now we need to deal with you, Creed. Magneto's like, I gave you strict instructions on what to do. You decided not to follow it and do your own thing. So now you need to serve us with a higher purpose, or like you said, an example. Apocalypse goes, agreed. Sinister's like, so long, pack light, travel safe to far off lands. X's is like, guilty. Mystique is like, just get it over with. Nightcrawler goes, it shames me, but I agree. Jean's like, yes. Storm's like, this sentence is way overdue. Sebastian Shaw's like, I don't care. Yes, fine. Emma's like, oh, absolutely. So the Sabretooth goes, you think I'm just going to take this? I'm making a list, and you're on it. Along with your kids and their kids, I'm going to make your lines extinct. And this is what they should have did once he got out of the pits. Like, he shouldn't went after Wolverine. He should have went after all these guys. So Xavier tells Doug to do it. Doug lets Krakoa know exactly what happened. And then all these vines come up, grab Sabretooth, and start pulling him down. After they get rid of Sabretooth, now they start to celebrate. There is fireworks, there is partying, there are like threesomes. Everybody like say that Wolverine, Cyclops, and Jean get it on together. So, I don't know. What if it's Wolverine's kid? Like, what if Wolverine knocks up Jean? How they gonna explain that? Even Emma and Jean, and you know their history, are actually trying to get along. I say try. And it ends with Apocalypse sitting right next to Krakoa. And you got Magneto and Professor Xavier standing on a ledge talking about, look at what we've made. 1,000-year life. We get to see how Myra dies in life number 6. And what does it mean? My name is Dorian. This is SCM Comics. We are concluding our coverage of Hox and Pox, Power of X, number 6. I am not rehashing year 1. We've been through this many times, where Myra meets Professor Xavier for life number 10. Where the real story begins is 1,000 years into the future. We're at the preserve, and the librarian walks in. Somebody comes out the bushes and jumps at him. You should be able to tell by the silhouette who this is. But anyway, he uses his very advanced, very evolved mind to pretty much stop them midair. So I guess they developed telekinesis. He's like, what are you doing? Like, my mind is way too advanced, way too fast for yours. Like, by the time you think about doing something, I already got down the countermeasures. And we see that as Wolverine. Like I said, should have been able to tell by a silhouette. And he can speak their very advanced, very evolved language, which he should, because, you know, it's been like 1,000 years. But then out of nowhere, the librarian starts speaking English to him. And Wolverine's like, huh, that's a neat trick, speaking English. And he's like, I'm the librarian. That language is fascinating. So he pretty much says that he learned English so that they can have an honest conversation. So Wolverine's like, all right, well, get on with it. And he's like, I'm waiting for her. And then Moira comes out of nowhere and goes, English, huh? So now there is a lot, I mean a lot of dialogue in between these next several pages, but I'm gonna try to sum it up as best I can. He fully understands how Myra powers work, and he's considering sending her to a far off distant planet and then let the whole assimilation happen and they become a part of the Phalanx, and then they go to the nearest black hole and then they become a Dominion. But he knows that if he doesn't do that and she dies before all this happens, then she'll go back to where she started. She'll have all the knowledge of what just happened and they will have none. And he's like, I don't think the Dominion will like that. But if he sends her off to that distant planet, like he said, and they become a part of the Dominion, then they'll be outside space and time and they'll know about her for always. But he's conflicted because he doesn't know if he should become a part of the Phalanx. And he wants them to kind of like convince him what to do. And Wolverine's like, oh, I know the answer to this one. I should just go ahead and kill Myra and then we start this revolution a hell of a lot sooner. So the librarian's like, I don't think you get it. I don't think you fully understand. You guys were the next step in human evolution. And for normal humans to catch up, we needed time. And that's what the machines were for. Sentinels bought us years, Nimrod bought us decades, until we caught up and surpassed you. So the Myra's like, I never saw it. And he goes on like a villain monologue, and then Wolverine stabbed the bejesus out this man. And then Wolverine goes, Dear Lord and Robot Heaven, was that fast enough for you? So then Myra's like, all this time we waited, and now we know why. And Wolverine's like, and now you know, and now it's time to go. And he does what Wolverine does best. And what he does best, it's not very nice. And so ends the sixth life of Myra X. So then we cut to the point where Charles sees all of this, and he's like, all right, I think I know what we need to do. And she's like, no, you don't. You don't have any idea exactly what we need to do. No. I don't need you to be you. I don't need Magneto to be Magneto. I need all of you guys to be different. And to do that, we're all going to have to work together. So then we cut to Myra's no place, where Magneto and Professor Xavier visits her. And Magneto brings tea. And Myra's like, I can get my own tea. And Magneto's like, shouldn't be rude. Besides, we bring more than tea. And she goes, you guys have developed a government, haven't you? Yes, we have. And the first meeting of the Quiet Council has already taken place. We have 11 seats already filled, with the 12th one to be filled soon. She's like, well, what are you waiting on? Professor X is like, Emma Frost hasn't picked her Red Queen yet. And Myra's like, you gotta watch that one. She's up to something. Magneto's like, we're all up to something, Myra. But she understands what the better good is, so it's fine. So then he explains how Apocalypse is sitting with him and Charles in the autumn chairs. Charles explains how Storm, Jean Grey, and Nightcrawler are sitting in the summer chairs. The Hellfire Club is pretty much sitting in the spring chairs. And the problem mutants, Mystique, Exodus, and Sinister, are sitting in the winter chairs. And Sinister, they really don't want sitting in the chair, but what if for him, none of this will be possible, so they rather keep him close than not around at all. And then Magneto explains how Mystique didn't want to join unless certain conditions were met. Myra's like, what is that? And Professor goes, she wants to bring back Destiny. And Myra's like, absolutely not. And they're like, we know. And she's like, a precog will bring all this down around us. And they're like, we know. And then she just keeps talking. And Professor's like, we know. What he should have said is, look, we know she roasted your ass already. And you don't want to go through that again. We got it. So they're like, look, we'll keep putting it off and putting it off. But eventually, they should all know the truth. Just like me and Charles know the truth. And Myra's like, you really want them to know that we always lose? And they're like, no. The truth is, the reason why we always lost is because we always let our differences stand between us. But now we're different. Now, this time, we're going to win. So the celebration happens just like in the House of X. But in this one, there's just a little bit more. So Magneto goes, that thought in the back of your head lingers, doesn't it? Is it enough? And he was like, it's only a start. We still got a lot of stuff to do. But Magneto goes, but is it enough? And Professor Xavier goes, if it's not, we'll do more. whatever it takes, whatever the cost. To his credit, and for all the House of X, he holds true to those words. So the Magneto goes, then I will die for this. I am not ashamed of what I am. Let them try to stop us this time. Lord have mercy. And that is the end of Hox and Pox. What do you guys think? They started off great. And the books that go after this are great too. Let me know in the comments if you want me to cover them, because I will.